All right, hello, welcome. We are back at Back of the Net, CISC's soccer podcast. This is Barry Slagle, and we are speaking today with Neil Roberts. Neil, welcome. We're excited to have you on the podcast, and hopefully we can get some good information and learn a little bit more about you. Can we start there? Can you tell me how long you've been in this area? How long you've been working for one of the legacy clubs, then obviously now with Charlotte Independence, and kind of give us a quick run through of your soccer background.
Yeah, Barry, thanks for having me. I'm excited to be here and really appreciate what you do. The podcasts are awesome. I've heard a few of them before. It's a pleasure to be on. So I moved here to Charlotte in the fall of 1999, actually in the late summer. I took the job as the UNC Charlotte women's soccer coach. And so gosh, man, I got here. I'll never forget it. I got here about third week in July, and preseason started August 1st. So things happened pretty quick. And my wife, Kelly, and sons, Tyler and Tanner, they were able to kind of get school started where we lived out in Greenville. And, but they finally kind of came back to us here and moved to Charlotte by Thanksgiving of that same fall. So yeah, it was kind of a whirlwind time that summer, but one of the best moves we've made. We've been here ever since. So yeah, those are some fond memories, and since that time we've had another son, Jake, here in Huntersville, and we've called Huntersville home ever since we moved into our new house in July of 2000.
Wow. Now, you were working at East Carolina as the women's soccer coach there before taking the Charlotte job. Is that right? Is that the job right beforehand?
Yeah, that's correct. I was at East Carolina for about 5 years and then took the job here at Charlotte in 1999. Yeah, so we came across the state.
Right. And then right before that, this is all in our press release. So I've got like my cheat sheet here. You were at Mount Olive as well, on the men's side though, correct?
Right. Yeah. I had gone to Mount Olive in around 1992, I believe, and coached the men's side for 3 years. Actually, we were getting ready to start the first ever women's program at Mount Olive the same summer that I left. We had spent that whole year recruiting for the women's team and had it all teed up and ready to go. And it still did go, but I just wasn't able to be the head coach for all those players I recruited. So
yeah, I was gonna say you were probably going to be doing dual duty, right? You were going to coach the men and the women.
Yeah. I was going to coach the men and the women. And nice little side note, I was going to have to give up my head coach of the men's golf team job so I could coach the women. So sometimes back in the day, and in those small college jobs, it was, you did a little bit of everything. So yeah.
Yeah, you're definitely speaking familiar language. My dad at one point was a baseball coach and a women's basketball coach and same golf coach, and he likes to think he knew some things about those, but they needed a coach, and he was one of the coaches on campus, so he was doing those. And then the other thing too, when you're a college coach, you're bouncing around, particularly in between jobs. When I was leaving Hartwick College before I came back and started working in this area, my wife and daughter Clara, they had moved back to South Carolina. My wife's a teacher, and they had started teaching in South Carolina, and I finished up the fall because you know how it is, you're committed to those kids and that team. And I was not going to leave right before the summer. I wanted to finish out the commitment up there, and then we came back. So the same thing with my dad too. We had a couple of different times where mom and dad were living in different places as we were chasing that soccer dream. So yeah, that sounds pretty par for the course, especially in the earlier days.
Yeah, fortunately for us, like our pathway, I met my wife in Chapel Hill at grad school. We got married in 1990, and we moved to New Bern. I was actually just a high school coach for coached in high school for a couple of years, then off to Mount Olive, then to East Carolina. But in those three moves, we stayed living in the same area. We didn't have to make that crazy cross country move or all over the place. And so the move from Greenville to Charlotte was actually our biggest move. And I mean, at the end of the day, it wasn't a cross country or anything, but it still has its pluses and minuses. And, my wife was, pretty much like, hey man, are we going to settle here for a little bit, or let's just stick around? So turned out being a great place. Like I said, Huntersville is a great town. This area, the community is fabulous. It's been a great place to raise our kids and enjoy a really good life here.
Yeah. And then when did you start working in the club environment? Like soon as you moved back, or were you just working at UNC Charlotte? when did you start working with one of the legacy clubs? I believe that was where you first came to, was North Mech Soccer. Was it North Mech Youth Soccer? What did we call ourselves at the time?
Yeah, it was North Mech Youth Soccer Association. It was so after the fall of '99, my first college season at Charlotte, um, pretty much hired a relatively new staff for the fall of 2000, and one of our goals as a staff was to kind of get involved in the community, and I had direct access to what was going on at North Mech because the boys played rec soccer at North Mech Youth Soccer Association. That was back when the office was the yellow house there on the corner of Bailey Road and out there where D9 is now. So that was the main office. Todd Herman and Ann Todd were working for the club then. And so my staff at Charlotte got involved. My assistant coaches coached a few teams, and I got involved helping out with rec coaches and things like that. And then over the course of, that 7 years, we just had a relationship with North Mech, with getting our staff involved and helping with clinics and things like that. Just, from a community service perspective, a lot of our players, college players, joined in to that effort and helped with coaching rec teams and just getting involved and giving back to the game, and so that part was a lot of fun. So that was kind of my entryway into the club. Then when I was finished at Charlotte, and I just started to do a little bit more coaching, and I coached our youth academy boys back in the day when there was City Cup and the Challenge League and all those fun things that were in Charlotte. And then just over time, I've grown with the club through Carolina Rapids time. That was at the same time I was coaching at North Mech High School, and then have been really fortunate to just continue to watch it grow into the Charlotte Independence. So I've been part of it as a coach or a director or a parent since the kids started playing. So almost 23 years now.
Yeah, that's really exciting. When I stepped out of the college game, my goal was to come back and either be somewhere we could put roots down, and soccer is what I've always done, and I was excited to make that transition to youth soccer. So it's neat to talk to somebody that has had his foot into all different parts of it and done it for a long time, and it gets me excited that you're still in this area, because that's what I'm hoping for individually, and that's what our family's hoping for. So yeah, that's really neat. Well, let's transition a little bit, because we've got you on here for a pretty particular reason. So we have a new position in the club, and you are going to be the director of that position. So the title is Director of Soccer. If you look at our org chart, your name is way up there in the top right over the soccer piece. But for somebody that's not familiar, and probably is an education for myself as well, can you talk a little bit about kind of generally what that role is, and then how you're going to fit into that role? And then maybe most importantly, if we have any staff listening or any members listening, how is that, or what impacts might either a staff or impact that a member might see now that we have somebody in this sort of dedicated position? So pretty big topic there, but kind of take it wherever you want.
Sure. Yeah. So for what seems to be a pretty long time, Thomas and I have worked together. And I've always told him, that, on the horizon is this piece where I retire and ride off into the sunset from teaching in public school, and then I can devote a lot more time to the club. And so, as those that probably went on for probably 10 years, Barry, honestly, and every year Thomas would be like, are you retiring yet? Are you retiring yet? And I was like, it's 7 more years, then 6, then then this time last year, I told Thomas, I was like, this is it, man. In 1 year's time, I think I'm going to be able to free up my time to devote a lot more interest and time to the club. And he's excited about that. So over the course of the last probably 18 months, him and I have been talking a lot about kind of where I fit and kind of how some leadership skills that I have can really impact the club. So as director of soccer, from an org chart perspective, I oversee our 10 directors, and including our sports performance director, Matt Danaher, and Matt Brown in goalkeeping, as well as all the other directors that oversee our club. And really, at the end of the day, I'm kind of slotted in there right between them and Thomas, because the task that Thomas has and our other leadership people like Chad and Dave have is enormous with the size of club that we have. And I feel like Thomas and I both really want the directors to have someone that's really working for them, to allow them to really plug into the soccer aspect of their job, which is, let's be honest, our coaching staff and our directors, they're our front lines, right? They're the people that are directly interacting with these young kids, really impacting their lives. And by impacting the lives of young kids, you're impacting the lives of families. And, it really just is a nice piece for me. I think the aspect from being a soccer parent, having 3 boys who have played at the club at various levels, allows me to really have a good perspective from what a player goes through at our club and what a family goes through, and what the expectations are, what the highs are, what the lows are. And I think it allows me to really relate well to the group, so that I can help our directors really provide a good environment for their families.
Yeah, just to jump in for a couple pieces, or in case anybody doesn't know, Thomas Finley is who Neil was talking about there. He's our chief executive officer. He's basically at the top and he does a lot of things, obviously, but he sort of sets our culture and our direction. And so that's sort of the liaison that Neil's talking about between our directors. And then our directors that he's specifically talking about are who you would think about when you think about our soccer pieces, right? We have I'm going to script the name, so please correct me, Neil, but we have our ECNL Academy directors. We have ECNL directors. So Jeff Billick, I know the guys side a lot better than I know the girls, so I'll try not to put my foot in my mouth, but Jeff Billick on the ECNL Academy, and then Darren Warham, who we hired over the summer for ECNL, and then Colin Gibson from the ECNL Regional League North, Tom McHenry on the ECNL Regional League South. And then those 2 guys also are directors for all the different local sites, right? Your North Mac site, your Mooresville site, your Gastonia, your East and your West, Cabarrus, our Matthews, basically all the people that you either talk to because they're your coaches, or who your coaches say, hey, let me check with the directors. So from a members facing standpoint, Neil is the guy that is sort of that liaison between the culture of the club and what we're trying to do at the highest level, and then trying to make sure that filters all the way through. And I really like the idea of making sure that you have the voice for the directors as well, because like you mentioned already, they're the ones that are out in the field every night of the week. In some cases, literally every night of the week, coaching teams or helping coach teams or sitting on benches.
Yeah, that's for sure. I mean, those guys, they work incredibly hard. They have staff that work incredibly hard. We also have, you were spot on with the boys side. We also have on the girls side, John Cullen, who is the director of our ECNL Girls Academy, who just came to us actually from coaching as the head coach at UNC Charlotte for their women's team. And we have Adam Tipper, who works with our girls program in the North, and Kala Stark, who works with our girls program in the South. And then John Tart, who has a role that, I would never say that any of our directors have a more important role than others, but when John is in charge of our youth academy, which is really that entry level, right, into our competitive programming, and really that spot where you really start to see those young kids blossom and just really grow in that program. And as I mentioned, Matt Danner in our sports performance, and Matt Brown with goalkeeping. So it's a great group of guys and personalities and intelligent soccer people that I'm overseeing. Ironically, there's 11 of us. There's 10 of them and 1 of me. 10 of them. So
what everyone wants to know then, what position are you? If there's 11 of you can't be on the bench, you got to be on the field. So what position are you?
Yeah, well, one of our first little icebreaker activities in our first directors meeting a couple of weeks ago was to set up our starting 11. And I gave the directors an opportunity to kind of pick and choose where they fit. And I just volunteered. My role, I looked at it as I'm here for you guys. So told them I'd step in wherever they needed me. And I ended up at right center back.
Oh,
So,
that's good
I
to
mean,
know.
I actually like it. I look at center back as being like a leadership position, even if just by the nature of the position and the role. It's kind of like goalkeeper, right? It's a automatic leader, director of the team. But yeah, that was a fun activity, and there's a lot of personality involved. But like I said, on to many people, even at an event on Saturday, I mean, we really have a good group of staff that are in charge of oversight of another set of young and qualified coaches. So that's exciting, and it's going to allow us to grow and really kind of focus on a primary goal, which is to make sure that the culture that where this program and this club really was built is that it gets filtered out to the larger masses, our membership, the rest of our staff, and of course our players.
Yeah, I wanted to highlight one thing that you had talked about that I thought was really cool, and on the face of it seems super valuable. On a college coaching standpoint or on a professional coaching standpoint, one of these ideas that I like, I don't know if it's true all the time, but it seems to be at face value to be pretty true. You want an athletic trainer that's a soccer person. You want a front office that's soccer people, right? They're different skill sets, but we come from the game, and so having that soccer background is so important. But I love the way that you put it, that you've had 3 of your kids in the club, so you actually have this holistic parent side as well, right? You know what it feels like to not only be a soccer guy that's plugged in as a coach and a director and recreational helper and volunteer and all those types of things, but you actually see the other side, or have seen the other side of, how does this look and how does this come across to the parent. So I think that that's super valuable, and I'm excited for that piece. That piece makes a lot of sense to me.
Yeah, I agree, and it just really gives you perspective. It just gives you, like I said, the perspective is strong, right? When your kid goes through something, that whether it be the highs and the lows of a game or relationship building with a coach, and when you see that get back in the car, and when you see that back at home, it really gives you good insight as to the power that these our coaching staff has on the front lines. And when I say power, I don't really mean that, and I don't want to perceive that in a negative way. It's a very impactful position.
Impact's a good word.
And it is it's important that we realize the impact that we can make, on the players and the families. So the perspective is really helpful for sure.
Yeah, well, let's sort of key in on that. So, either two things. What are some focus areas, now that we have this dedicated position and this dedicated person yourself in the position? What are some focus areas that, you're trying to either expand upon, or maybe they're new? And then, as a member, whether it be a parent or player, or, somebody that's coming to watch their grandkids play, that might not be the direct parent that's there all the time. What are some things that we might see in this process now that we have a director of soccer that's sort of bridging those gaps and making sure things are going in the right direction?
Well, as I said, I'll be straight up with you that one of the number one things Thomas has charged me with is to make sure that the culture that where we really came from is exhibited across our entire club. So what you're going to see is, I think, a lot of consistency amongst our staff in the way we approach training, in the way we approach what we wear, in the way we approach how the kids come to the field, and all of these things to be much more consistent, and for everybody to just look across the field or be at a site and go, there's an Independence player. Wow, I see that they do the same thing we do pregame, or their mannerisms are the same, or their coaches wear the same gear, or the coaches speak to us in a respectable way. It's something that we just really want to pride ourselves on. And that's a big challenge. I mean, with the merger in year 4, I mean, the first couple of years, obviously that becomes very, you're dealing with people coming from a couple different perspectives with a couple of different, sets of goals, and now trying to get everybody on the same page. I'm fortunate enough to be, I was a coach and a parent in that North Mech culture that turned into the Carolina Rapids, that has also it reached out and embraced Lake Norman and Discoveries. And so it was all born here. And now we're just got to make sure that it's consistently the message is sent out to everybody, including families and players. So that's number one. I think the other thing that that I'd like for everybody to really see is an increase in quality. I feel like the merger has kind of made the quantity seem like very big, almost like a monster size quality, and I don't want people to feel like they're just a small blip on the screen in a large club. So what I've really been focused with the directors on improving the quality of communication that we have and the quality of the relationships that we're building with our members. And so that we can be a much more inclusive club. I'm in around it a lot, you're around it a lot, and there is a little bit of a concern or vibe when you get big that you're going to forget where you came from, right? And so I think and want families to just understand that we're going to really focus on quality this year.
Yeah, I love the piece about our culture isn't just our coaching staff, right? It's not just our executive leadership. It's not just our operations. It's not how we put our product out in the field or just our coaches, right? It's all those things. And then just as importantly, it's the players and the families, right? We've all been at youth soccer games, youth events, whether they're soccer or other sports, where there are parents that sometimes get a little too excited, right? And then players that, don't always treat the officials or other opposition with respect. And that's definitely something that we are trying to do a better job of, right? So bringing parents and bringing players into the fold of the culture, our culture isn't our culture if not everybody's participating on it. And I think it really hits too, our players are not just a member of a particular team, right? They are a member of the Charlotte Independent Soccer Club. And there's a lot of benefits to that. As we get bigger, one of the big positives of being bigger is these kids have an unbelievable number of facilities, an unbelievable number of teams. Quite often I tell my 09s or my 08s from last year, like, you guys need training during the fall, you can come train with my team. There's just lots of opportunities like that. So anything that expresses that idea that you are a member of a club as the whole is it really gets me excited. You're not just a member of one particular team for one particular season. There are a lot of great benefits here. The communication piece, we're using Playmetrics. I'm super excited about this new program, and I doubt we've even hit like 30% of what it's going to be capable. I really love when we use a new technology and we start to master it 6 months, 18 months in, and then you learn little tips and tricks, every year after that. But we've expanded that to our recreational program. In years past, TeamSnap is what we've used, and TeamSnap is just absolutely phenomenal. And I think Playmetrics is going to have all those features and more. Right? There's a lot of back-end stuff that we use Playmetrics for, but our recreational program, if they wanted to use it previously, the coaches had to purchase it. They had to decide that that's something that they wanted to do.
Right.
But the club said, "Hey, Playmetrics is for everybody." All of our recreational teams are going to have their schedules, their practices, their games. They're going to have basically the entire same suite of tools. And that's another good example of, you're a member of this club. So how can we bring things in line? How can we make things the same across the board, be more inclusive and get more things out? So I think both of those things are really cool. And from a recreational director standpoint, things I'm already starting to see that are popping off, which is cool.
Yeah, no, I mean, and there's so many other examples of that. Like there's some really fun examples, like for me to share, like, it was a couple weeks ago, I also coach our U19 girls ECNL team. And we were out there and we're training at the same time as the pre-ECNL girls were training. So you had high school seniors on a field 4 at Richard Barry Park, and then 11 and 12 10, 11 and 12-year-olds on field 3. And we went over and moved the goals for them and then met them and the girls introduced themselves. And it's just kind of like, to see the young ones just kind of looking up at them, at the older ones, and just kind of seeing that cultural piece was really cool, And so over everywhere at our club, we're doing that kind of stuff. The culture that we're creating is really trying to help to develop a pathway for the players, whether they be recreation, youth academy. We just want everybody to feel the same independence feel, if you know what I mean. I'm glad you mentioned Playmetrics, because I think our membership, once we get over the transition from TeamSnap to Playmetrics, let's be honest, everybody gets used to something and that happens, but it's such a robust and powerful tool. I've been working on a few things today to try to bring our IDP and evaluation process into Playmetrics to make it much more user-friendly for our players and our members and our staff so that they can interact on those. There's just a lot of really cool pieces. We're working with Soccer Resilience on a club-wide program where they do mental fitness training, and it includes everybody. It includes membership for families and parents of younger players that are just going down the path of that, all the way to higher level programming for some of the more national programs. So again, it's like there are times where sometimes a big club gets kind of victimized or is guilty of only catering to the top, whereas I think we do a great job of making sure that our club is very inclusive and gets a lot of benefits.
Yeah, we had this past weekend, we had 4 Soccer is Fun clinics, free clinics for 4 to 8-year-olds or whatever the exact age group was. I know at Bailey it was like 180 kids that showed up, 150 had signed up, and 30 walk-ups, and that staff that was out there working for free. Obviously we're salaried employees, but that clinic wasn't a charged event. It was essentially the entire ECNL staff from the women's side of the game here at the club, and Thomas was out there as well. And we had 3 other sites going with similar staffs, and that was really cool. And then on the other field, we had our free referee recreational certification process, where we brought out one of our referees who did an education piece for almost exclusively, I mean, anybody could have signed up for it, but people that signed up for it were almost exclusively our competitive players, our juniors and seniors in high school. And these kids are going to, make a little bit of money for an hour's worth of work on Friday nights and Saturdays, reffing our recreational program, right? And that could be our youngest players, even up into our high school age groups, because we have recreation that goes from 4-year-olds all the way to 19-year-olds. And that, again, just another good example of we are more than just that one team that you show up to practice for. There are a lot of great opportunities. And that one's like, hey, I want my kid to be somewhere safe and, get some of those lessons of having discipline and having a job and needing to be there on time. And, obviously as a referee, sort of traversing presence. I don't know how to say it, but, you're in charge, and, you're going to be leading that group. So I think that's just really cool. And like you said, there's plenty of good examples about that. What about for staff? I think we hit some of the membership pieces. If any of our staff are listening here and trying to understand, hey, Neil seems awesome, but how am I going to interface with them besides them saying, hey, here's our standards, sit them? Like, how is the staff going to view Neil Roberts, or what can a staff get from or feel as an impact in this new position?
Yeah, well, what I would say most of that, and this is a personal goal of mine, and also something that Thomas and I established going into it, is it's kind of a generality, but I really want to help make their life more about soccer, and take some of the other, whether you want to call them administrative pieces or take an extra meeting off their plate one time a week, anything we can do to kind of allow them to really spend time, one, helping to develop their own staff, continuing to do that, and 2, obviously planning and doing events within their own programs to reemphasize the culture and to keep their programs on a pathway to success. So for me, again, I wrote down, like when I'll never forget when Thomas and I were kind of meeting about it, one of the things I wrote down was make it about soccer for the directors, so just really opening the door for them, giving them an extra, some support, an extra set of soccer eyes, an extra bit of soccer brain, like you mentioned before. I'm no spring chicken, so I've been through a lot of different things, a lot of different experiences. There's a lot of different ideas that I have that I think can help a lot of these directors and the staff. One of the funnest things I've done so far in the short time I've been here is train my team, or train the U19 girls team at 5:00 on every day, Monday through Thursday, and then go walk about at Richard Berry Park and just go and meet some of these young coaches and watch them train the kids, introduce themselves. I just want them to feel like they're connected to us as well. I don't want them to think that they're out there on an island. I want them to know there's support, and that we can help them if they need it.
Yeah, it's beautiful. All right, so just reaching back, and then I'll kind of let you close this out with anything that you're interested in, or anything that you want to put out, either something that we've already touched on or something completely different. But from a parent-facing side, from a family membership-facing side, we're hoping to do a good job of really standardizing our culture, right? And that's top down, bottom up. We're trying to be one club in a lot of different areas, and really standardize that piece. And then that next big emphasis that you talked about is quality of communication. My one question for you before I pass the microphone back to you is, because our communication protocol is important, right? So if a parent is trying to reach out, whether it's a problem, whether it's a pat on the back, whether it's just a question, when, if any, would they speak to you, or like, what does that communication protocol look like? And if we don't have the exact specifics in front of us, that's okay. Just kind of general idea of what we're looking for a communication protocol. How might they interface with you?
Yeah, that's a good question. I mean, at the end of the day, what we want the relationship that we build with our membership to start with our front-facing coaching staff. So our ultimate goal would be that each of our head coaches of our teams have awesome experiences to share with players, which in turn leads to relationship building with the families. Obviously, there's always quirks that come up, whether they be communication or scheduling or whatever. So the first line is just through the coaches. The second line kind of goes to the directors, and then that third line would come to me. But having said that, I don't want anybody in our membership to feel that they can't reach out to me specifically with a question. When you say director of soccer, it's, there's a lot of things that fall under that umbrella. So there isn't a question that could be asked of me that I wouldn't be willing to answer, or at least point them in the right direction. So we do have like a protocol, and I think it's a valuable protocol from a perspective of the educational piece that goes along with that. Like it's important for a family to understand how to talk to a coach, and a coach how to talk to a parent. And then as it goes up that chain of command, if you will, it can be even more congruent than it is, So, like I said, it's a part of that chain of that communication protocol is part of our culture, and we want to stick to that. But at the same time, we're also very reasonable and feel like it's not just a straight line, right? There's definitely a way for me to interact. I've interacted with families since I've been in this role from a topic of bad weather to team travel to using the attendance feature on Play Metrics. I mean, I've been involved in every little piece of it. So I guess the best way to answer it is like, just ask me, What I mean?
Yeah. For anyone that's been with us for a while, you're probably aware, but if you're ever looking to send one of us an email, it's our first name, first initial of our last name. So in my case, Barry, Barrys, because my last name's Slagle, at independentsoccer.club. And obviously for Neil, it's Neilr at independentsoccer.club. Neil Roberts in Neil R.
Neil R, right. Exactly.
Cool. Well, this is your time to shine. Neil, you got anything else that you want to mention before we let you go? We've got a hard timer on the Zoom call. It only records for 45 minutes, so we're getting there.
Okay. No, I mean, honestly, I just, first of all, I want to thank you for taking the time to have me on. I'd like to thank everybody for listening. I mean, I'm excited about the role that has been developed in some ways to fit some of my strengths. But the biggest strength that I have, honestly, is a passion for the club. I have had, and my family has had, like an incredible experience with this club. And my ultimate goal is I can help everybody else have as good or better of an experience than the Roberts family has.
Love that. Well, Neil, thanks so much for the time, and have a great day. I'm sure you'll be out in the fields in a little bit, just like myself.
See everybody on the pitch.
See you, Neil.
Take care.